In the early 1970s, the Qarawiyyin Mosque was still a gathering place for the Sufi orders of Fez, and every evening after the sunset prayer, fuqara, literally the poor, members of Sufi brotherhoods, gathered in circles throughout the mosque to recite their evening litanies, or awrad. My companions and I formed a circle and began reciting the wird of Sheikh Muhammad ibn al-Habib. We were a small group, no more than about 8 men. At the time, I was young and easily agitated, and my heart was in turmoil as we intoned the familiar liturgy. My eyes were lowered and closed as I wrestled with my turbulent heart and tried concentrating on the meaning of the collective voice from the circle of remembrance. I continued in this way until suddenly, without warning, my heart liquefied. I was immersed in a pool of light. The atmosphere became cool and diaphanous. My agitation vanished. I looked up to see if something had changed. A very ordinary man had joined our small circle. He was smiling. He was so ordinary looking that it was hard to believe that he had anything to do with my unexpected change of state. In fact, quite uncharitably, I saw him as an irritating intruder into our sacred circle. When we completed the wird, our guest went round the circle, kissed everyone's hand, and departed. His name, I came to learn, was Sidi Tami. Although ordinary on the outside, he had an extraordinary place in the spiritual hierarchy. He was the spiritual guardian of Fez, chosen for this role by God and by the messenger of God, or alayhi salatu wasalam. Or this is what was accepted by the Sufi adepts. How this worked, I never really learned. Symbolically, concealed beneath his jalaba, he wore an immense set of prayer beads that extended all the way down to his knees. Few ever saw this. When he got to know us better, he once pulled the tasbih out. It was awesome. He then said casually, with a wink and a smile, without a trace of self-importance, "Not too many people know this, but I'm a wali Allah. I'm a saint." If anyone entered the labyrinthine ancient city of Fez from any gate with the intention of remembering God, they would run into Sidi Tami. There were times when 3 parties would come into different parts of the city unannounced from 3 different directions at the same time, and they would all, by chance, just happen to meet him. He would then direct each party to different parts of the city to sit with spiritual adepts, join circles of remembrance, or to visit the tombs of the saints. Now this is where I'm going to skip because it's quite a long section. Okay. Sometime later, I was in Meknes at the Musam of Sheikh Muhammad ibn al-Habib. This is a week-long celebration revolving around the act of remembrance, morning, noon, and night. After the noon prayer, fuqara tended to remain in the zawiya resting. Some slept, others chatted among themselves. Some drank tea, some left to do errands or return to their families until the afternoon prayer. The day was hot and soporific. An unusual lethargy permeated the large zawiya hall. Amongst the group was a strange but devoted Meknesi tinsmith who was known for his eccentric behavior and sudden, inappropriate outbursts in which he would leap up in the middle of a gathering and begin a solo hadra, like a dance. He would always volunteer to wash the hands of the fuqara, carrying around a pitcher and an aluminium basin with a soap dish for hand washing after a meal. In his case, once all the fuqara had washed their hands and mouths, he would lift the basin to his lips and drink down the used soapy water with relish for the barakah or blessing. We always watch this odd spectacle with a mixture of amusement, revulsion, and I have to say a kind of admiration at the mad devotion this fakir exhibited. There's a false assumption among the uninitiated and outsiders that the spiritual path is the exclusive domain of saintliness and sanity. And this is not the case. The path is full of ordinary people. Some are sane, some are imbalanced, some advance, some stay behind, but the path provides a matrix for grace, and one person's inappropriate behavior can trigger another person's epiphany. That sweltering afternoon, Si Fudul al-Hawari as-Sufi, the great Fesi scholar, began to give discourse to the gathering. He was an orator of shattering insight who could easily galvanize a crowd. In the midst of Si Fudul's sober oration in the quiet, languid afternoon, the tinsmith jumped up, eyes closed, and began his rhythmic solo hadra, which was actually quite disturbing when you saw it. On many occasions when this happened, the fukara ignored him or even interfered to stop him. On this occasion, Si Fudul waited for a moment, and then he signaled the assembly to begin a formal hadra. Suddenly, about 50 men formed a circle, all linking together by holding hands, and one of the most intense spiritual hadras I have ever participated in began. The dance was unbelievably powerful. Of the 50 people in the circle, probably 30 were bona fide awliya. Every member was enwrapped in the sacred dance, which eventually intensified into the exhalation, hai, 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 like that. An accelerating collective breath. Outside the circle, fukara with soaring, mellifluous voices sang from the diwan of Ibn Habib. The technique we were taught for concentration during the sacred dance was to visualize the name of God, Allah, 5 letters, in blazing white light against a blue horizon of sea and sky. The aim is to make the mighty name larger and larger until it fills one's vision, obliterates all thought, and overtakes the heart. I was very inexperienced, and my concentration was weak. I managed to keep the name in my vision through the first part of the hadra, but then my concentration wavered and the image of the name vanished from my mind's eye. The moment the name disappeared from my interior horizon, I felt a fakir on my right side squeeze my hand and pump my arm up and down to the rhythm of the hadra with great vigor until the name reappeared. I glanced over to my right. Sidi Tami, eyes closed, seemed completely absorbed in the back and forth rhythm of the hadra. At first I thought that this might have been a fluke, but after losing sight of the name several times and having Sidi Tami pump my arm until it returned, I knew it was no coincidence. It was as if he was inside me, seeing what I saw. This was no ordinary man. And I end this with a great quotation from Ibn Ata'illah al-Iskandari. He says, "Exalted be he who makes his saints known only in order to make himself known, and who leads toward them those whom he wishes to lead toward himself."